The chandeliers in the Grand Meridian Ballroom cast golden light across 500 of the city's most influential people. Victoria Hayes stood near the bar, tugging at the hem of her borrowed dress. The black fabric clung to her body in ways her usual work clothes never did, and the heels made her calves ache after only 30 minutes. She shouldn't have come. Mandatory didn't really mean mandatory, did it? Half her department had found excuses. Food poisoning, family emergencies. One guy claimed his cat had a seizure. But Tori had been raised to follow rules, show up when expected, do the right thing even when it hurt. The bartender slid a glass of champagne toward her. She took it without drinking, letting the stem rotate between her fingers. Around her, conversations hummed about stock prices and merger deals and vacation homes in the Maldives. This wasn't her world. These people existed in a stratosphere she could barely see from ground level, let alone touch. Her eyes scanned the crowd out of habit, looking for colleagues she might hide beside for the next 2 hours. Then her stomach dropped. Jason Palmer stood near the silent auction tables, blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent. And beside him, draped in silver sequins and diamonds that caught every light, was Rebecca Walsh. Her platinum hair fell in waves down her back. Her laugh carried across the room, bright and performative. They looked perfect together, like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread about power couples who summered in the Hamptons and winter in Aspen. Tori turned back toward the bar, heat flooding her cheeks. 2 years. She'd given Jason 2 years of her life. She'd supported him through his promotion, celebrated his wins, talked him through his doubts at 3 in the morning when insomnia hit. Then he'd gotten the senior position at Whitmore and Associates, started traveling in different circles, meeting different people. People like Rebecca. The breakup speech played in her memory whether she wanted it or not. "You're amazing, Tori, but we want different things. I need someone who understands the demands of this lifestyle. You're too comfortable being ordinary." That last word had cut deeper than the rest. Ordinary. She drained half the champagne glass. The bubbles burned her throat. A familiar laugh made her tense. Tori glanced sideways and saw them approaching, Jason's hand resting on Rebecca's lower back with casual ownership. They hadn't noticed her yet, too absorbed in whatever conversation they were performing for the couples around them. Tori set down her glass and moved toward the ballroom's far side, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights. Her sneakers would have squeaked on this marble floor. The heels clicked with each step, announcing her retreat. She made it halfway across the room before Jason's voice called out, "Tori? Victoria Hayes? Is that you?" Every muscle in her body locked. She turned slowly, forcing her expression into something neutral, pleasant. The mask she'd perfected in every meeting where men interrupted her ideas, then repeated them louder. Jason and Rebecca had changed trajectory, heading directly toward her now. His smile was wide and familiar. Hers was sharp as glass. "Jason, hi." Tori's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Rebecca, you look different." Rebecca's eyes traveled down Tori's dress and back up with the precision of an appraisal. "Did you do something new with your hair?" It was the same as always. Tori knew that was the point. Just cleaned up for the evening. She matched Rebecca's smile, tooth for tooth. Jason stepped closer, and Tori caught the cologne she used to love, now cloying in her nose. "I didn't know you'd be here. Are you still at—" He waved his hand vaguely. "Where was it you worked?" "Sterling Global." The name came out clipped. "Same place I've worked for 3 years." Right, Jason nodded like he'd remembered, though they both knew he hadn't. "Are you here with someone, or—" "She's clearly alone, darling." Rebecca's hand tightened on Jason's arm, nails painted the color of fresh blood. "It's so brave coming to these things solo. I could never. Too intimidating." The subtext screamed beneath the words. Too sad, too pathetic, too ordinary. Tori's throat closed. Her hands felt numb. The ballroom suddenly seemed too bright, too loud, too full of people who belonged here while she played dress-up in borrowed clothes. Jason leaned toward Rebecca, whispered something. They both looked at Tori. Rebecca's smile widened. Something snapped in Tori's chest. She turned away from them, desperate, scanning the crowd for anyone, anything. Her gaze landed on a broad back 3 feet away. Tall man, dark suit, facing away from her, talking to someone she couldn't see. Tori moved before thinking. Her hand reached out and tapped his shoulder, fingers brushing expensive fabric. The man turned. Time fractured into slow motion. She registered details in fragments: steel gray eyes that widened slightly in surprise, dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead, a jawline that could cut glass, a small scar above his left eyebrow, height that made her tilt her chin up even in heels, and recognition that hit her like cold water. Nathan Sterling, CEO of Sterling Global Enterprises, her boss's boss's boss, the man whose signature appeared on company-wide emails and quarterly reports, the billionaire who'd built his father's tech company into an empire before 20. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. His eyebrows drew together slightly, question forming in his expression. Behind her, she heard Rebecca's laugh again, closer now, Jason's voice saying something about catching up. The words tumbled out before Tori could stop them. "Could you dance with me?" Her voice came out too quiet, breathless. "My ex is watching." Nathan Sterling's eyes shifted past her shoulder, tracking toward something behind her. When his gaze returned to her face, something had changed in it. The surprise had vanished, replaced by something she couldn't read. The moment stretched. Tori's heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. This was career suicide. This was... He held out his hand. Of course. His voice was deeper than she'd imagined, smooth and certain. Tori stared at his palm for half a second before placing her hand in his. His fingers closed around her, warm and solid, and he turned toward the dance floor without hesitation. The band had started a new song, something slow and classic that Tori didn't recognize. Nathaniel led her through the crowd with the ease of someone who'd spent his life at events like this, navigating bodies and conversations without pausing. They reached the dance floor's edge. He turned to face her, releasing her hand only to place his palm on her lower back. His other hand took hers again, lifting it to the proper position. Tori's free hand trembled as she placed it on his shoulder. They began to move. He was a good dancer, confident without being showy, guiding her through the steps with subtle pressure at her back. Tori's feet followed automatically, muscle memory from high school cotillion classes she thought she'd forgotten. For 10 seconds, she didn't think, just moved. Just breathed. Then reality crashed back in. She was dancing with Nathaniel Sterling, her CEO. She'd grabbed him like a life raft and dragged him into her mess without permission, without explanation, without... Breathe. His voice came quietly, meant only for her. "You're holding your breath." Tori exhaled shakily. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Your ex." Nathaniel's eyes flicked past her again, then returned. "The blonde man in the Armani knockoff?" Despite everything, a startled laugh escaped her throat. "That's him. He's watching." Nathaniel's expression didn't change, but something like amusement flickered in his gray eyes. So is his companion, the woman who looks like she's mentally calculating the cost of your dress. "She probably is." Tori's voice came out bitter. "Rebecca has opinions about everything I do." "Then let's give her something to have opinions about." His hand pressed slightly firmer against her back, drawing her incrementally closer. Not inappropriate, not unprofessional, just enough that anyone watching would see intimacy rather than obligation. Tori's breath caught. This close, she could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, could smell his cologne, subtle and expensive, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I know who you are." The words escaped before she could stop them. Nathaniel's mouth curved slightly at one corner, almost a smile. "I should hope so. I sign your paychecks." "Oh, God." Tori closed her eyes. "This is so inappropriate. I'm sorry. After this dance, You'll what?" He guided her through a turn, smooth and effortless. "Apologize again? Flee to your car? Spend the rest of the night hiding in the bathroom?" She opened her eyes. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Not angry, not annoyed, something else entirely. I wrote the Harrington page. The words came from nowhere. Last month, the campaign that won the account. Understanding flickered across his face. Victoria Hayes. Hearing her full name in his voice did something strange to her pulse. Everyone calls me Tori. She didn't know why she said it, didn't know why it mattered. Tori. He said it like he was testing the weight of it. The Harrington pitch was impressive, clever without being gimmicky, authentic. Heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment flooded her cheeks. The song was ending. Tori could feel it in the music's swell, the band's final flourish approaching. Reality waited at the song's edge, full of consequences and mortification and probably a termination letter. But Nathaniel Sterling didn't release her hand. The final notes faded. Applause rippled across the ballroom. Couples separated, returning to their conversations and drinks and normal lives. Nathaniel's fingers stayed wrapped around hers. "Come with me." He said it quietly. Not a command, but not quite a question either. Tori's eyes widened. "What? Your ex is still watching." His thumb brushed once across her knuckles. There and gone. And we're not finished talking. The terrace stretched along the hotel's east side, empty except for scattered cocktail tables and the glow of heat lamps fighting against November air. Nathaniel released Tori's hand, only to shrug off his jacket, draping it across her shoulders before she could protest. The silk lining held his warmth. Tori pulled it closer, inhaling cedar and something else she couldn't name. "You'll freeze." Her voice sounded small against the city noise below. "I'll survive." He moved to the railing, looking out at the skyline. "You, however, are already shaking." She was. Whether from cold or adrenaline, Tori couldn't tell anymore. "I really am sorry." The apology tumbled out again. "That was completely out of line. You were just standing there and you asked me to dance." Nathaniel turned to face her, leaning back against the railing with his hands in his pockets. "I said yes. No coercion involved. You're my boss. Technically, David Morrison is your boss. I'm several levels removed from your department. That's not better." Tori wrapped the jacket tighter. "That's actually worse. I used you to make my ex jealous, and you're the CEO of the company I work for, and tomorrow everyone's going to know and breathe." The same instruction from the dance floor, but gentler now. Tori sucked in air, let it out slowly. Her hands had gone numb around the jacket lapels. "The Harrington pitch." Nathaniel's voice pulled her attention back. "You wrote it in 3 days, after Morrison's lead strategist quit unexpectedly. Pulled 2 all-nighters. Delivered it yourself because no one else understood the nuances." She stared at him. "How do you know that?" "I read every major pitch before it goes to clients." He tilted his head slightly. "Yours had something the others didn't. Authenticity. You understood what Harrington actually needed instead of what they said they wanted." Heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment flooded her cheeks. "Thank you." The song was ending. Tori could feel it in the music's swell, the band's final flourish approaching. Reality waited at the song's edge, full of consequences and mortification and probably a termination letter. But Nathaniel Sterling didn't release her hand. The final notes faded. Applause rippled across the ballroom. Couples separated, returning to their conversations and drinks and normal lives. Nathaniel's fingers stayed wrapped around hers. "Come with me." He said it quietly. Not a command, but not quite a question either. Tori's eyes widened. "What? Your ex is still watching." His thumb brushed once across her knuckles. There and gone. And we're not finished talking. The terrace stretched along the hotel's east side, empty except for scattered cocktail tables and the glow of heat lamps fighting against November air. Nathaniel released Tori's hand, only to shrug off his jacket, draping it across her shoulders before she could protest. The silk lining held his warmth. Tori pulled it closer, inhaling cedar and something else she couldn't name. "You'll freeze." Her voice sounded small against the city noise below. "I'll survive." He moved to the railing, looking out at the skyline. "You, however, are already shaking." She was. Whether from cold or adrenaline, Tori couldn't tell anymore. "I really am sorry." The apology tumbled out again. "That was completely out of line. You were just standing there and you asked me to dance." Nathaniel turned to face her, leaning back against the railing with his hands in his pockets. I said yes. No coercion involved. You're my boss. Technically, David Morrison is your boss. I'm several levels removed from your department. That's not better. Tori wrapped the jacket tighter. That's actually worse. I used you to make my ex jealous, and you're the CEO of the company I work for. And tomorrow, everyone's going to know and breathe. The same instruction from the dance floor, but gentler now. Tori sucked in air, let it out slowly. Her hands had gone numb around the jacket lapels. The Harrington pitch. Nathaniel's voice pulled her attention back. You wrote it in 3 days, after Morrison's lead strategist quit unexpectedly, pulled 2 all-nighters, delivered it yourself because no one else understood the nuances. She stared at him. How do you know that? I read every major pitch before it goes to clients. He tilted his head slightly. Yours had something the others didn't. Authenticity. You understood what Harrington actually needed instead of what they said they wanted. Heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment flooded her cheeks. Thank you. The song was ending. Tori could feel it in the music swell, the band's final flourish approaching. Reality waited at the song's edge, full of consequences and mortification and probably a termination letter. But Nathaniel Sterling didn't release her hand. The final notes faded. Applause rippled across the ballroom. Couples separated, returning to their conversations and drinks and normal lives. Nathaniel's fingers stayed wrapped around hers. Come with me. He said it quietly. Not a command, but not quite a question either. Tori's eyes widened. What? Your ex is still watching. His thumb brushed once across her knuckles, there and gone, and we're not finished talking. The terrace stretched along the hotel's east side, empty except for scattered cocktail tables and the glow of heat lamps fighting against November air. Nathaniel released Tori's hand, only to shrug off his jacket, draping it across her shoulders before she could protest. The silk lining held his warmth. Tori pulled it closer, inhaling cedar and something else she couldn't name. You'll freeze. Her voice sounded small against the city noise below. I'll survive. He moved to the railing, looking out at the skyline. You, however, are already shaking. She was. Whether from cold or adrenaline, Tori couldn't tell anymore. I really am sorry. The apology tumbled out again. That was completely out of line. You were just standing there and you asked me to dance. Nathaniel turned to face her, leaning back against the railing with his hands in his pockets. I said yes. No coercion involved. You're my boss. Technically, David Morrison is your boss. I'm several levels removed from your department. That's not better. Tori wrapped the jacket tighter. That's actually worse. I used you to make my ex jealous, and you're the CEO of the company I work for. And tomorrow, everyone's going to know and breathe. The same instruction from the dance floor, but gentler now. Tori sucked in air, let it out slowly. Her hands had gone numb around the jacket lapels. The Harrington pitch. Nathaniel's voice pulled her attention back. You wrote it in 3 days, after Morrison's lead strategist quit unexpectedly, pulled 2 all-nighters, delivered it yourself because no one else understood the nuances. She stared at him. How do you know that? I read every major pitch before it goes to clients. Yours had something the others didn't. Authenticity. You understood what Harrington actually needed instead of what they said they wanted. Heat that had nothing to do with embarrassment flooded her cheeks. Thank you. The song was ending. Tori could feel it in the music. Speak with you. Right. Jason's smile had turned brittle. Good to see you, Tori. Mr. Sterling, a pleasure. They retreated inside. Through the glass doors, Tori watched Jason's posture change, his hand gesturing sharply as he spoke to Rebecca. Both of them kept glancing back toward the terrace. There's no Pembroke account, Tori said quietly. There will be by Monday. Nathaniel removed his hand from her back. Consider it your reward for excellent improvisation under pressure. She turned to face him fully. Why are you helping me? Maybe I don't like men who call ambition a quirk. He met her eyes steadily. Or maybe I saw an opportunity. Opportunity for what? Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, studying her face like he was making a calculation. When he spoke, his voice carried a different weight. My board of directors has opinions about my personal life, specifically that I should have one. He pulled out his phone, scrolled briefly, then showed her the screen. This is from 3 weeks ago. The article headline read, "Sterling CEO spotted alone at charity function for third consecutive year." The photo showed Nathaniel in a tuxedo, looking bored beside a woman who was clearly trying to engage him in conversation. "They think I need to settle down before the Zenith merger finalizes." He pocketed the phone. "Prove I'm stable, committed, all the things that apparently matter to shareholders." Tori's heart had started beating faster. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your ex-boyfriend walked away thinking you're dating a billionaire." Nathaniel's expression remained neutral. "And my board would be thrilled to discover I have a girlfriend who works at my company, understands the industry, and isn't interested in me for my portfolio." "You want to fake date me." The words came out flat. "I'm proposing a mutually beneficial arrangement," he corrected. 3 months. Public appearances at necessary events. In exchange, I'll provide compensation that reflects the time and effort required. Tori's mind spun. This was insane. This was the plot of a romance novel, not real life. CEOs didn't propose fake relationships on hotel terraces with women who'd ambushed them on dance floors. "Why me?" Her voice cracked slightly. "You could have anyone." "Anyone else would want something from me," Nathaniel said simply. "You didn't even want to dance with me. You wanted a shield against your ex. That's refreshingly honest." "This is crazy." "Probably." He almost smiled. "But you're considering it." She was. God help her, she actually was. The image of Jason's face when he'd realized who Nathaniel was played on repeat in her mind. The way Rebecca's confidence had crumbled. The feeling of not being ordinary for once in her life. "I need to think about it." Tori pulled off his jacket, handed it back despite the cold biting through her dress. Nathaniel took it, slinging it over one shoulder. "Take the time you need, though fair warning, if you say yes, this needs to look real. Half measures won't convince anyone." "And if I say no?" "Then we pretend this conversation never happened. You continue doing exceptional work, I continue disappointing my board." He moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, you were never ordinary, Tori." He was just intimidated by what he couldn't control. He left her alone on the terrace with the city lights and too many thoughts. Tori stayed there for 5 more minutes, shivering, staring at nothing. Then she went inside, collected her coat from check, and drove home to her studio apartment where everything was exactly as ordinary as Jason had claimed. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked her door. Unknown number. Monday, 9 a.m., my office. If you're interested. NS. Tori stared at the message until her screen went dark. She didn't sleep that night. Monday morning, she stood outside the executive floor at 8:57 a.m., wearing her best blazer and enough concealer to hide the exhaustion bruising her eyes. At exactly 9 a.m., she knocked on Nathaniel Sterling's door. His assistant opened it, smiled professionally, and gestured her inside. Nathaniel sat behind a desk that probably cost more than her car, reading something on his computer. He glanced up as she entered, and his expression shifted into something that might have been relief. "Miss Hayes," he stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "I wasn't certain you'd come." Tori's hands trembled. She clasped them together. 3 months. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "Public appearances only, and I want the terms in writing." Nathaniel's mouth curved into an actual smile this time, transforming his entire face. "I wouldn't expect anything less." The restaurant was the kind of place Tori had only seen in magazines. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers that threw rainbows across white tablecloths, and a wine list that required a sommelier to translate. The hostess had greeted Nathaniel by name, led them to a corner table with practiced discretion. Tori's borrowed dress from the gala had been replaced with one Nathaniel's assistant delivered that afternoon. Emerald green. Simpler than the black one, but the fabric felt like water against her skin. She'd almost returned it. Almost. "You're doing it again." Nathaniel's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Doing what?" "Holding your breath." He set down his menu, which he hadn't actually been reading. "We're supposed to look comfortable together." "We barely know each other." Tori reached for her water glass, realized her hand was shaking, pulled it back. "How am I supposed to look comfortable?" "Start by ordering something you'll actually eat." He nodded toward her untouched menu. "The salmon is excellent, so is the risotto." "How do you know what I like?" I don't. His expression softened slightly. That's why we're here. To learn things people in relationships know about each other. Right, the arrangement, the performance they were constructing. Tori opened her menu, scanning prices that made her stomach clench. Everything cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Order whatever you want, Nathaniel said quietly, like he'd read her mind. That's not part of the calculation. The waiter appeared before she could respond. Nathaniel ordered wine she'd never heard of and an appetizer in flawless French. Tori asked for the salmon, hoping her voice sounded steadier than it felt. When the waiter left, silence stretched between them. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, studying her with the same assessment she'd seen on the terrace. "Tell me something real," he said finally. "Real? Something not in your employee file, something I wouldn't learn from your LinkedIn profile." Tori twisted her napkin under the table. "Why?" "Because if anyone asks how we met, we need a better story than you accosted me at a charity gala." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Though that version has its charm." Despite herself, Tori almost smiled. "What do you want to know?" "What do you do when you're not writing pitches that win accounts?" The question caught her off guard. "I read. Old bookstores, the kind that smell like dust and forgotten stories. There's one in Parkside that's been there since 1952. I go there most Saturdays." Something shifted in Nathaniel's expression. Interest, maybe. Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction? Both. Depends on the mood. She relaxed incrementally. I like things that feel real, even when they're impossible. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. He paused as the waiter returned with wine, poured a small amount for approval. Nathaniel tasted it, nodded. When both glasses were full, and they were alone again, he continued, "I hate modern art." Tori blanked. What? Modern art, the kind that's 3 dots on a canvas and costs $6 million. I've attended more gallery openings than I can count, and I've never understood the appeal. He took a sip of wine. Everyone pretends to love it because they're supposed to. It's exhausting. A real laugh escaped Tori's throat. The CEO of a tech empire doesn't appreciate abstract expressionism? The CEO of a tech empire thinks most of it is pretentious nonsense. His eyes held something warm now, almost playful. "There, now you know something that would horrify my publicist. Your secret's safe with me." "Good, because we're about to give the photographer outside something to work with." Tori's spine straightened. "Photographer?" Straight side, black jacket, camera with a telephoto lens. Nathaniel's gaze never left her face. He's been there since we arrived. "My team may have mentioned our reservation to a few interested parties." Her heart kicked against her ribs. "This is really happening? Only if you're still willing." His voice dropped lower. "We can leave through the kitchen. No photos, no story. You go back to your life." Tori thought about Jason's face on the terrace, about Rebecca's dismissive assessment, about being called ordinary like it was a character flaw she should apologize for. "I'm willing." She met Nathaniel's eyes. "What do I do?" "Exactly what you're doing now. Talk to me like I'm a person, not a performance." The appetizer arrived, some kind of seafood arrangement that looked almost too beautiful to eat. Nathaniel pushed the plate toward the table's center, took a piece with his fork. "Your turn," he said. "Ask me something real." Tori considered while cutting into delicate fish. "Why did you say yes? On the terrace, when I asked you to dance. You could have walked away." Nathaniel was quiet long enough that she thought he might not answer. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. "Because you looked terrified, and because the man watching you looked smug." He set down his fork. "I've spent enough time around people who enjoy making others feel small. I don't tolerate it in business. Didn't seem right to tolerate it at a charity event." Something warm unfurled in Tori's chest. Dangerous. This was supposed to be an arrangement, not real. She needed to remember that. Dinner continued with easier conversation. Nathaniel told her about inheriting the company at 27, the pressure of expanding his father's legacy while trying to build his own. Tori shared stories about working 3 jobs through college, the adjunct professor who'd believed in her writing when no one else did. The wine helped. Or maybe it was the way Nathaniel listened, actually listened, like her words mattered as much as any board presentation. They were finishing dessert when Tori's phone buzzed. She ignored it.
It buzzed again and again. "You can check it," Nathaniel said. She pulled out her phone reluctantly. 3 texts from an unknown number. "Saw you at Castellano's. Really? Sterling? You're better than this, Tori. Don't embarrass yourself. Call me. We should talk." Her appetite vanished. Nathaniel noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "Jason. I don't know how he got my new number." She set the phone face down on the table. "He wants to talk." Nathaniel's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. Block him. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. He reached across the table, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat of his hand. "You don't owe him explanations. You don't owe him anything. He thinks I'm using you." The words came out smaller than intended. "For career advancement or revenge or let him think whatever helps him sleep at night." Nathaniel's voice held an edge now. His opinions stopped mattering the moment he walked away from you. The conviction in his tone did something to her breathing. The waiter brought the check. Nathaniel handed over a black card without looking at the total. While they waited, he leaned forward slightly. "When we leave, he'll get his photos. Are you ready?" Tori nodded, not trusting her voice. They stood. Nathaniel came around the table, offered his hand. She took it, fingers sliding against his palm with a familiarity that shouldn't exist yet. The night air hit them as they exited, cold enough that Tori's breath misted. The photographer was exactly where Nathaniel said he'd be, camera already raised. Nathaniel's arm slid around her waist, pulling her close against his side. Natural, protective. His jacket blocked the worst of the wind. "Smile like you're happy," he murmured against her hair. "Shouldn't be that hard. The salmon was excellent." She laughed despite everything, real and surprised. The camera flashed. They walked toward his car, a sleek black vehicle that probably cost more than her yearly salary. The photographer followed at a distance, still shooting. Nathaniel opened the passenger door for her. Before she could slide in, voices carried from down the street. "Tori?" She froze, turned. Jason and Rebecca stood 20 feet away, clearly having just left another restaurant. Jason's expression was thunderous. Rebecca clung to his arm, but her attention was fixed on Tori with something like reassessment. "Jason." Tori's voice came out level. Nathaniel's hand found the small of her back again. "I texted you," Jason said, taking a step closer. "We need to talk, privately." "I don't think that's necessary." Tori surprised herself with the firmness in her tone. "Really?" Jason's laugh was harsh, warning. But Jason ignored her, attention locked on Tori. "You think dating your boss is going to change anything? You're still the same girl who was too scared to take risks, too comfortable being careful." Nathaniel's voice cut through the night like a blade, not loud, but absolutely commanding. Jason's mouth snapped shut. He looked at Nathaniel like really seeing him for the first time. Whatever he found there made him step back. "We were just leaving." Rebecca tugged Jason's arm. "Come on." "Yeah." Jason's eyes never left Tori's face. "This isn't over, Tori. Actually, it is." Tori spoke before she could second-guess herself. "It's been over for 8 months, Jason. You made that choice. Now I'm making mine." She turned back to the car. Nathaniel's hand steadied her as she slid into the passenger seat, legs shaking so badly she could barely manage the movement. He closed her door gently, walked around to the driver's side. Through the windshield, Tori watched Jason and Rebecca arguing on the sidewalk. The photographer was getting those shots too. Nathaniel started the engine. Heat flooded through the vents. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I don't know." Tori's hands twisted in her lap. "That was necessary." He pulled into traffic smoothly. He needed to hear it. You needed to say it. They drove in silence for several minutes. City lights blurred past the windows. Tori realized they were heading away from downtown, toward her neighborhood instead of his. "You remember where I live? It's in your file." He glanced at her. "Also, you mentioned it when we discussed the contract terms." Right, the arrangement, the performance. She kept forgetting the lines between what was real and what was constructed for appearances. He pulled up outside her building, an old converted warehouse with decent rent and questionable heating. Put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. "Thank you," Tori said, "for dinner, for everything. This is the easy part." Nathaniel's expression was serious in the dashboard lights. "It gets more complicated from here." "I know." Do you? He turned to face her fully. By tomorrow morning, those photos will be everywhere. Your name will be attached to mine in every business publication and gossip site. People will have opinions. Your coworkers will ask questions. Your ex will likely escalate. I can handle it. I believe you. He paused. But if you change your mind, if this becomes too much, I won't. Tori opened the door, cold air rushing in. 3 months, we have a deal. She was halfway out when his voice stopped her. Tori, she looked back. You were right about the salmon. I did know you'd like it. His mouth curved slightly. You mentioned it in the Harrington pitch, the client meeting at Russo's. You ordered salmon then too. He'd remembered that. From a detail in a pitch he'd read weeks ago? Tori couldn't find words. She nodded once and stepped out into the cold. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the door and let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. The text showed a photo. Her and Nathaniel outside the restaurant, his arm around her waist, her face turned up toward his with that genuine laugh. They looked real. They looked happy. Below the photo, this is just the beginning. No name, but Tori knew Jason's pettiness well enough to recognize the threat. 2 weeks dissolved into a rhythm Tori hadn't anticipated. Monday morning meetings, where Nathaniel's gaze would find hers across the conference room for half a second too long. Wednesday lunch at the cafe, 3 blocks from Sterling Global, photographed but never intrusive. Friday evening at a gallery opening, where his hands stayed at the small of her back while they pretended to appreciate abstract installations they both found ridiculous. The office had noticed. Tori felt the shift in how people looked at her now. Some expressions held curiosity, others thinly veiled resentment. Jennifer from accounting had stopped inviting her to lunch. Marcus from finance asked pointed questions about the Pembroke account that wasn't really hers until Nathaniel made it so. But her work hadn't suffered. If anything, the campaign she pitched had grown sharper, more confident, as if pretending to date a billionaire had convinced some part of her brain that she deserved to take up space. She was reviewing layouts for the Pembroke presentation when her phone buzzed. Nathaniel, you have plans Saturday morning? Tori stared at the message. Saturdays weren't part of their arrangement. Those were hers, sacred time she guarded carefully. Tori, my bookstore day. Why? The response came immediately. Nathaniel, which bookstore? Tori, the one in Parkside I mentioned, Morrison & Sons. Why? Nathaniel, see you there at 10. Before she could type a response asking what he meant, another text arrived. Nathaniel, bring coffee. I take mine black. The audacity made her laugh out loud. Her cubicle neighbor glanced over, eyebrows raised. Tori schooled her expression back to neutral and returned to her layouts. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. Tori dressed in jeans and her favorite oversized sweater, the kind of outfit that had nothing to do with appearances or performances. She stopped at the corner cafe, ordered her usual vanilla latte and a black coffee that cost $7 because apparently Nathaniel Sterling's caffeine habits were as expensive as everything else about him. Morrison & Sons occupied a narrow building wedged between a vintage clothing shop and a Thai restaurant. The windows were dusty, the door required a specific push-pull technique to open properly, and the inside smelled exactly like Tori had described, old paper and forgotten stories and time itself. She spotted Nathaniel immediately. He sat in the back corner near the philosophy section, wearing dark jeans and a navy sweater that made him look younger than his 32 years. No suit, no tie, just a man reading a book with complete absorption, coffee cup from somewhere else already empty beside him. Tori's steps faltered. This wasn't part of their arrangement. This was her space, her routine, her escape from everything. He looked up as if sensing her presence. Something in his expression shifted when he saw her, went soft around the edges. You're late. He said it without hate, closing the book. You invited yourself to my Saturday. Tori held out the coffee cup. I'm allowed to be late. Fair point. He accepted the cup, took a sip, made a face. This is terrible. It's what you ordered. I ordered black coffee. This tastes like motor oil mixed with regret. Tori bit back a smile. There's cream and sugar by the register. I'll suffer. But he took another sip anyway, watching her over the rim. You come here every week? Most weeks. She set down her bag, hyper-aware of the small space between them. It's quiet. No one bothers me. Should I leave? The question held genuine consideration, like he would actually walk away, arrangement be damned. You're already here. Tori moved toward the fiction section, running her fingers along cracked spines. What are you reading? He held up the book. Philosophy of Technology, something dense with a subtitle she didn't read from this distance. Light weekend material, she said dryly. Says the woman who reads Dostoevsky for fun. He nodded toward her bag, where a battered copy of the Brothers Karamazov peeked out. How did you... She stopped. My employee file doesn't list my reading preferences. No, Nathaniel stood, moving closer with the book still in hand. But you quoted it in the Harrington pitch, the part about loving life more than the meaning of it. I looked it up. Something warm and dangerous bloomed in Tori's chest. She turned back to the shelves before he could see her face. They browsed in comfortable silence for 20 minutes. Nathaniel migrated toward history, while Tori lost herself in the fiction stacks. She'd pulled 3 books when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. The photo showed her and Nathaniel at Wednesday's lunch, heads close together over the table. The angle made it look intimate, romantic. The text below made her stomach clench. Playing house with the CEO? How long before he gets bored? You were never enough for me. You won't be enough for him either. Tori's hands tightened around her phone. Jason had been sending messages all week, escalating from fake concern to thinly veiled resentment. Threats. She'd blocked 4 numbers. He kept finding new ones. Tori? She looked up. Nathaniel stood 3 feet away, expression shifting from relaxed to alert in an instant. What's wrong? Nothing. She shoved the phone in her pocket. Just work stuff. You're a terrible liar. He closed the distance between them. Show me. It's fine. I can handle. Show me. Not a command. Quieter than that. Almost a plea. Tori pulled out her phone with shaking hands and passed it over. Watched Nathaniel's face go carefully blank as he read Jason's message. The muscle in his jaw jumped once. How long has this been happening? His voice was too calm. Since the restaurant, it's not a big deal. It's harassment. He scrolled up, reading previous messages she hadn't deleted yet. His expression darkened with each one. Tori, this is what I agreed to. She took the phone back. You said people would have opinions, that my ex would escalate. I knew what I was signing up for. Not this. Nathaniel's hands clenched at his sides. This crosses lines. What do you want me to do? Every time I block him, he finds a new number. If I respond, it encourages him. If I ignore him, he gets worse. Frustration bled into her voice. There's no winning move here. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment, thinking. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted into something she recognized from board meetings. Strategic, decisive. Give me your phone. What? Why? Because I'm going to handle this. He held out his hand. Trust me. Tori hesitated, then unlocked her phone and passed it over. Watched him type something, delete it, type again. His thumbs moved quickly across the screen. What are you saying to him? Nothing. Nathaniel hit send, then handed back her phone. I'm forwarding everything to my legal team. They'll send Jason a cease and desist by Monday morning. If he contacts you again after that, we file for a restraining order. That seems extreme. That's appropriate. His eyes held hers. You shouldn't have to deal with this alone. Arrangement or not, I'm not going to let him keep hurting you. The conviction in his voice did something to Tori's breathing, made the bookstore feel smaller, made the space between them feel charged with something that had nothing to do with performances or photographs. Thank you, she managed. Don't thank me for basic decency. But his expression softened. Come on, I'm buying you actual coffee from somewhere that doesn't serve motor oil. They left Morrison & Sons with 4 books between them. Nathaniel insisted on paying, despite Tori's protests, charmed the elderly owner into stories about the shop's history, and somehow made everything feel easy again. The coffee shop 2 blocks over had good espresso and terrible lighting. They claimed a corner table by the window where afternoon sun cut across worn wood. Can I ask you something? Tori wrapped her hands around her new latte. As long as it's not about quarterly earnings. Nathaniel's mouth quirked. I'm off duty. Why did you really come today? She met his eyes. The truth. He took a long sip of his coffee, considering. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight it hadn't before. Because everything else we do is performance. Restaurants where we're photographed, events where we're watched, conversations calibrated for whoever might be listening. He set down his cup. I wanted to see who you are when no one's paying attention. And you're exactly who I thought you'd be. Something warm lived in his expression. Someone who spends Saturday mornings in dusty bookstores reading Russian literature and drinking overpriced coffee. Someone real. Tori's heart did something complicated against her ribs. This was dangerous territory. The arrangement had clear boundaries. 3 months, public appearances only, compensation that reflected time and effort, but nothing else. Except sitting here felt nothing like an arrangement. Felt like something else entirely. Her phone buzzed. Not Jason this time. Nathaniel's assistant with a reminder about the business conference next weekend. The one where they'd need to share a suite because all other rooms were booked. Nathaniel saw her expression change. The conference. Your assistant said something about a room issue? The hotel's fully booked. Industry conference plus a medical convention. He grimaced. They only had couple suites available. I can cancel if you're not comfortable. No, Tori said it too quickly. I mean, we have to go, right? For appearances? For the merger, technically. But yes, appearances factor in. He paused. I'll take the couch. Or the floor. Whatever makes you comfortable. The image of Nathaniel Sterling sleeping on a hotel floor because she was too nervous about sharing space made something in her chest ache. We'll figure it out, she said. It's fine. But as they sat there, coffee cooling between them, books stacked at their elbows, Tori realized nothing about this arrangement felt fine anymore. Fine was safe, predictable, controllable. What she felt when Nathaniel smiled at her over bad philosophy books and worse coffee was none of those things. It was terrifying, and she wasn't sure she wanted it to stop. The hotel suite had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, and furniture that probably cost more than Tori's annual salary. Tori set her overnight bag on the nearest chair and tried not to calculate how many months of rent this single night cost. Nathaniel emerged from the bedroom on the right, having already claimed it without discussion. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. The conference didn't start until tomorrow, but they'd arrived early for a dinner with potential investors tonight. I can take the couch. Tori gestured toward the pristine white sofa that looked more decorative than functional. You're taking the bedroom. His tone left no room for argument. I've slept in worse places. When? Between thread counts of 1,000 and 2,000? The corner of his mouth lifted. College. Sophomore year. My roommate's band practiced until 3 in the morning once nights. I learned to sleep anywhere. Tori tried to imagine a younger Nathaniel Sterling suffering through amateur rock music in a dorm room. The image didn't quite fit the composed CEO in front of her. What instrument? She asked. What? Your roommate. What did he play? Drums. Nathaniel moved to the windows, looking out at the water. Badly. With great enthusiasm, but absolutely no rhythm. Are you still friends? He's my chief technology officer. Something fun entered Nathaniel's expression. Still can't keep a beat, but he's brilliant with software architecture. Tori filed that information away, with all the other small details she'd been collecting. Nathaniel Sterling reads dense philosophy, hates pretentious art, values loyalty, and apparently kept college friendships alive despite building an empire. Her phone buzzed. She tensed automatically, but it was just a reminder about tonight's dinner. 7 o'clock, dress code formal. I should get ready. She grabbed her bag, retreated to the unclaimed bedroom before Nathaniel. He could see how his proximity was affecting her breathing. The room was smaller than his, but still excessive. King bed with too many pillows. Bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. Tori hung up the dress his assistant had sent, navy blue this time, with a neckline that showed more collarbone than she usually preferred. She showered, dried her hair, applied makeup with hands that wouldn't stay steady. This was just another appearance, another performance. Except sharing a suite made everything feel different, more intimate, more real. When she emerged an hour later, Nathaniel was on his phone near the windows. He turned at the sound of her heels on marble, and whatever he'd been saying died mid-sentence. His expression did something complicated, went still. His eyes tracked from her face down to her shoes and back up with an intensity that made heat flood her cheeks. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone without looking away from her. Ended the call before whoever it was could respond. Silence stretched between them. Tori's fingers found the pendant at her throat, twisted it nervously. "Is it too much?" Her voice came out smaller than intended. "Your assistant said formal, but I wasn't sure if—" "You look beautiful." The words were quiet but absolute. "Tori, you—" He stopped, jaw working like he was searching for the right word and coming up empty. Something dangerous sparked in the air between them. Nathaniel cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "We should go. Car's waiting downstairs." The restaurant was the kind where every table cost what Tori used to make in a month. Nathaniel's hand settled at her lower back as they were led to a private dining room where 4 people already waited. 2 men in expensive suits, 1 woman in elegant black, another in deep red. Introductions blurred. Names and companies Tori would need to remember, but couldn't focus on because Nathaniel's thumb was drawing small circles against her spine through the fabric of her dress. Deliberate or unconscious, she couldn't tell. They sat. Nathaniel kept his hand on the back of her chair, close enough that she felt the heat of his palm. Conversation flowed around investments and market projections and the upcoming merger. Tori contributed when appropriate, fielding questions about Sterling Global's marketing strategies with the confidence she'd built over 2 weeks of pretending she belonged in rooms like this. The woman in red, Catherine something from a venture capital firm, leaned forward with predatory interest. "So, how did you 2 meet?" Her smile was sharp. "I've been following Nathaniel's career for years. He's never brought anyone to these events before." Tori felt Nathaniel tense beside her. They'd discussed this, prepared answers, but Catherine's tone suggested she was looking for cracks in their story. "At work," Tori said smoothly. "I've been with Sterling Global for 3 years." "How convenient." Catherine's eyes narrowed. "Office romance. Some companies have policies against that sort of thing. Some companies value outdated power dynamics over genuine connection." Nathaniel's voice held an edge. "Sterling Global isn't one of them." One of the men, Franklin, laughed. "Come on, Kat, let them be. Young love and all that." "I'm just curious." Catherine took a deliberate sip of wine. "The timing is interesting. Right before the Zenith merger. Right when board members were expressing concerns about Nathaniel's focus." The accusation hung in the air, barely veiled. Tori's spine straightened. "My relationship with Nathaniel has nothing to do with business strategy." She met Catherine's gaze directly. "Though I understand why you might assume otherwise. It's easier to believe people use each other than to accept that genuine connection exists." Catherine's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe, or reassessment. "Well said." The other woman, Michelle, raised her glass slightly toward Tori. "Catherine forgets that not everyone treats relationships like merger negotiations." The tension broke. Conversation shifted to safer topics. But Nathaniel's hand found Tori's under the table, squeezed once in what felt like gratitude. Dinner stretched past midnight. By the time they returned to the suite, Tori's feet ached and exhaustion pulled at her bones. She kicked off her heels the moment the door closed, groaning with relief. Hazard of the uniform. Nathaniel loosened his tie, watching her with something amused in his expression. "How do you do this multiple times a week?" "Practice, and significantly more comfortable shoes." Tori laughed, moving toward her bedroom. "I'm going to change into something that doesn't require structural engineering." She emerged 10 minutes later in sleep shorts and an oversized college shirt, face scrubbed clean of makeup. Found Nathaniel on the balcony, still in his dress shirt but with the tie gone and the top buttons undone. He held a glass of something amber. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. He turned. His eyes tracked over her casual clothes with an expression she couldn't read. "Too much coffee at dinner." He lifted his glass. "Want some? It's bourbon. Good bourbon." Tori joined him at the railing, accepting the glass he offered. The liquor burned smooth down her throat. "You handled Catherine well," Nathaniel said after a moment. Better than I would have. She was testing us. She was being rude. His jaw tightened. The implication that you're using me for career advancement is exactly what people are going to think. Tori cut him off gently. We knew this going in. Young woman dating her billionaire boss, the optics are terrible. That doesn't make it right. No, she took another sip, but it's the price of the arrangement. The word felt wrong as soon as she said it. Arrangement. Like what they were doing could be reduced to contracts and terms. Like the way he'd looked at her in that dress was part of some negotiated agreement. Nathaniel was quiet, staring out at the harbor lights. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret it? Saying yes? Tori's heart did something complicated. Do you? I asked first. She considered lying, considered deflecting. Instead, she told him the truth. No. Even with Jason's harassment and the office gossip, and people like Catherine thinking the worst of me, she turned to face him fully. These past 2 weeks have been the first time in years I felt like more than just someone who shows up and does her job, like I matter. You always mattered. His voice dropped lower. Whether you were dating me or not. That's easy for you to say. You're Nathaniel Sterling. You've always mattered. You think inheriting a company means automatic respect? Something bitter entered his tone. Half the board still sees me as my father's legacy project, a kid playing CEO until the adults take over. But you proved them wrong. So will you. He shifted closer, close enough that she smelled his cologne mixed with bourbon. Catherine's skepticism tonight, that's her problem, not yours. You held your own. You always do. The conviction in his words made breathing difficult. Why did you really invite me to the bookstore? The question escaped before Tori could stop it. Nathaniel's eyes searched her face. Because I wanted to know if what I felt was real or just part of the performance we've been giving everyone else. And I spent 3 hours watching you get excited about first editions and argue with me about Dostoevsky's theology. His mouth curved slightly. Everything I felt was real. Tori's pulse hammered in her throat. They were too close. The balcony was too small. The night was too quiet. Nathaniel, I know. He stepped back, putting safe distance between them. 3 months. Public appearances only. I'm not asking for more than what we agreed to. But the way he looked at her suggested he wanted to. Tori's phone buzzed from inside. They both turned toward the sound. She retrieved it from the coffee table, screen lighting up with a new message. Not Jason this time. Unknown number, but the content made her blood run cold. The text contained a photo. Tori and Nathaniel on the balcony moments ago, taken from somewhere below. The angle made it look like they'd been kissing, intimate and damning. Below the image, interesting. Does the board know their CEO is playing house with an employee? Maybe they should. Nathaniel read over her shoulder. His entire body went rigid. Jason. Tori's voice shook. He's here, at the conference. Or he hired someone who is. Nathaniel's tone had gone deadly calm. The same voice she'd heard on the terrace when Jason pushed too far. Give me your phone. What are you going to do? End this. He was already scrolling, finding something. Tonight. Tori woke to an empty suite and 3 missed calls from her best friend Amy. Weak sunlight filtered through the curtains. Her phone said 6:47 a.m. She'd barely slept, spending most of the night replaying Jason's threat and the way Nathaniel's expression had shuddered when he'd seen that photo. He disappeared into his room around 2 a.m, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and clipped. She'd heard fragments through the wall, legal terms, phrases like documentation and immediate action, then silence. Now his bedroom door stood open, bed already made with military precision. No note, no message. Tori showered and dressed in jeans and a sweater, the conference not starting for hours. She was pouring terrible hotel coffee when her phone buzzed. Nathaniel. Something came up. Stay in the suite, I'll explain later. Her stomach nodded. She typed 3 different responses before settling on, everything okay? The reply came immediately, will be, whatever that meant. Tori tried to focus on work emails, but her mind kept spiraling. Jason's photo, the threat to expose them to the board, the merger that could fall apart if shareholders thought Nathaniel was distracted by an inappropriate relationship. thousands of jobs hanging in the balance because she'd asked him to dance at a charity gala. Around noon, someone knocked. Tori checked the peephole, saw a woman in hotel uniform holding a garment bag. Delivery for Miss Hayes. The woman's smile was professional. From Mr. Sterling. Tori accepted the bag, tipped the woman, and unzipped it on the bed. Inside was a dress. Not the usual elegant selections his assistant sent, but something softer. Deep green, the color of forests. A note was pinned to the hanger in handwriting she recognized from contract signatures. Wear this tonight. Trust me. N. Tonight. The conference's opening reception, where everyone who mattered in the tech industry would be watching. Tori's phone rang. Amy, calling for the 4th time. Finally. Amy's voice was sharp with worry. I've been trying to reach you since yesterday. Are you okay? I'm fine. Why wouldn't I be? Because Jason posted something cryptic on social media last night about truth coming to light, and then Rebecca called me asking if you were really dating Nathaniel Sterling. Amy paused. Tori, what the hell is happening? Tori sank onto the bed. Amy was the one person who knew the whole story about Jason. The breakup, the cruel words, the months spent rebuilding herself afterward. But she didn't know about the arrangement. It's complicated. Are you actually with him, Sterling? Yes, no, sort of. Tori pressed her palm against her forehead. We're dating, but it started as... She caught herself. The NDA she'd signed prohibited discussing the arrangement's origins. It's new. It's real. I think. You think? Amy's tone gentled. Honey, are you sure this is a good idea? Your boss's boss? The power dynamic alone? I know how it looks. I'm not judging. I'm worried. Amy exhaled slowly. Jason's been obsessed since those photos of you and Sterling came out. Rebecca says he's barely sleeping. He hired some investigator to look into the timeline of your relationship. Tori's blood went cold. He did what? Please tell me there's nothing to find. Please tell me this isn't some revenge scheme or... It's not. The words came out too defensively. Amy, I have to go. Conference thing. She ended the call before Amy could push further. Sat there with her phone in her hands, watching the minutes tick past while anxiety built in her chest like pressure. The arrangement had clear boundaries. 3 months, public only, compensation for time. But somewhere between bookstore Saturdays and balcony conversations and the way Nathaniel looked at her in navy blue, those boundaries had dissolved. Now Jason was threatening to expose something that felt simultaneously fake and more real than anything she'd experienced. Her phone buzzed. Not Nathaniel this time. Unknown number. We need to talk. Alone. Hotel bar, 2 p.m. Come by yourself or I send everything to Sterling's board. J. Tori's hands shook. She should tell Nathaniel, should forward this to his legal team like he'd instructed, should follow every protocol they'd established. Instead, she grabbed her keycard and headed for the elevator. The hotel bar was too dark for midday, all leather and dim lighting designed for intimate conversations. Jason sat in a corner booth, wearing a polo shirt and the smug expression she'd grown to hate. You came. He stood as she approached. I wasn't sure you would. You threatened me. Tori didn't sit. Say what you want to say. Sit, please. His smile was calculated. This doesn't have to be adversarial. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but the thought of him sending those photos to the board, destroying the merger, hurting Nathaniel because of her choices, kept her feet planted. She sat, kept her spine straight, refused to look away from his face. You look good, Jason said. Different, more confident. What do you want? He leaned back, studying her like she was a puzzle he was solving. The truth. Is this real? You and Sterling? That's none of your business. It is when you're using him to make me jealous. Jason's voice hardened. Come on, Tori. I know you. The timing's too convenient. I break up with you. Suddenly you're dating a billionaire? You broke up with me 8 months ago. Tori kept her voice level. You moved on to Rebecca within a week. Why do you care who I date? Because I made a mistake. The admission came out rough. Rebecca's beautiful, sure, connected, but she's not you. Tori's stomach turned. Jason, I was wrong about you being too ordinary, too comfortable. He leaned forward. You were right for me. I just couldn't see it.
Until I saw you with someone else. So this is about winning. Understanding crashed over her. You don't actually want me back. You just can't stand that I moved on. That's not fair. Fair? Heat flooded Tori's voice. "You spent months making me feel small, telling me I wasn't ambitious enough, interesting enough, sophisticated enough. Then I finally find someone who makes me feel like I matter, and you try to destroy it? I'm trying to protect you." Jason's expression shifted to something that might have looked like concern to someone who didn't know better. "Sterling's using you. A CEO doesn't date a mid-level employee without an agenda. Once he's done with whatever he needed you for, he'll move on, just like I did." The comparison made Tori's hands clench. Nathaniel is nothing like you, isn't he? Powerful man, younger woman who works for him. How do you think that looks to everyone watching? Jason pulled out his phone, showed her something. "The investigator I hired found the timeline. You two started getting photographed together right when his board was pressuring him to settle down before the merger. Convenient, right?" Tori's breath caught. Jason had pieced together exactly what happened, even if he didn't know about the contract. "You don't know what you're talking about. Then prove me wrong." Jason's smile turned sharp. "Leave him. Walk away right now. If it's real, if you actually care about him, end it before this blows up and tanks his merger." "Why would I do that?" "Because the alternative is me sending everything to his board. The photos, the timeline, the questions about whether Sterling Global's CEO is making business decisions based on his relationship with a subordinate." Jason leaned closer. "I'm giving you an out, Tori. Take it. Leave him. Come back to me. I'll make sure none of this sees the light of day." Understanding hit like cold water. This wasn't about winning her back. This was about control, about making her choose between her feelings and Nathaniel's career, about proving he still had power over her. "No." The word came out steady, final. Jason's expression darkened. "You're willing to destroy his reputation for pride? I'm willing to trust that what we have is stronger than your petty revenge." Tori stood. "Send whatever you want to whoever you want. I'm done letting you control my life." She turned to leave. Jason grabbed her wrist. "You're making a mistake. Let go of me." Her voice stayed low but hard as steel. "Tori." She said, "Let go." Nathaniel's voice cut across the bar like a blade. Tori turned to find him standing 10 feet away, still in his suit from whatever meeting had kept him gone all morning. His expression was carved from ice. Jason released her wrist immediately, stood. "Sterling, this is a private conversation." "Not anymore." Nathaniel closed the distance between them in 3 strides, positioned himself slightly in front of Tori, protective. "You have 5 seconds to walk away before I have hotel security escort you out. I was just threatening my girlfriend with blackmail material you obtained through illegal surveillance?" Nathaniel's voice never rose, but somehow filled the entire space. "My legal team is already filing harassment charges. The cease and desist you ignored last week becomes evidence of pattern behavior. Keep talking. Give us more ammunition." Jason's face went pale. "You can't prove." "I can prove everything." Nathaniel pulled out his own phone, showed him something Tori couldn't see. "The photographer you hired to follow us, the private investigator who's been calling Tori's coworkers asking questions, the 15 blocked numbers you've contacted her from." He put the phone away. "And before you try your board threat, they're already aware of my relationship with Tori. Have been since week 1. Nice try, though." The lie came so smoothly, Tori almost believed it herself. Jason looked between them, realization dawning. This was a setup. This was you making predictable choices. Nathaniel's expression could have frozen fire. "You saw me as a target, saw Tori as leverage. Didn't occur to you that maybe we expected exactly this?" It wasn't true. They hadn't planned any of this. But Jason bought it. She could see belief spreading across his face. "Now, walk away." Nathaniel's voice dropped to something dangerous. "From this hotel, from Tori, from whatever crusade you think you're on. Because if I see or hear from you again, I won't use lawyers. I'll use every resource at my disposal to ensure you never work in this industry again. Are we clear?" Jason's jaw worked, his hands clenched. But whatever he saw in Nathaniel's face made him step back. "This isn't over." "Yes," Nathaniel said, quietly. "It is." Jason left without another word.
Tori watched him go, legs suddenly unsteady. The adrenaline that had kept her upright crashed all at once. Nathaniel's hand found her elbow, steadying her. "Are you okay? You lied to him." Her voice came out shaky, about the board knowing. "I'll tell them tonight." His thumb brushed against her arm. "Should have from the beginning. Transparency prevents exactly this kind of manipulation. But the merger will survive the truth." He guided her toward the elevator. "We need to talk, privately." They didn't speak in the elevator. Nathaniel kept his hand at her back, steady and warm, while floors ticked past in silence. Tori's mind raced through everything that had happened. Jason's threat, her defiance, Nathaniel appearing like he'd known exactly where to find her. The suite door closed behind them with a soft click. Nathaniel moved to the windows, running a hand through his hair. The composed CEO from the bar had fractured into something more human, tired, worried. "You followed me," Tori said. "I had hotel security monitoring the bar after his text came through." He turned to face her. "Did you really think I'd let you meet him alone? He said to come by myself. And you listened?" Something sharp entered his voice. Not anger, fear wearing anger's mask. "Tori, he's been harassing you for weeks. You should have told me the moment he contacted you." "I was trying to protect the merger, your reputation." Her own voice rose to match his. "If Jason exposes us to the board, then they'll know the truth." Nathaniel crossed to her in 3 strides, "Which I'm telling them tonight anyway, at the reception." Tori's stomach dropped. "What? The board, the investors, everyone at this conference." His jaw was set. "I'm making a statement about our relationship, public, official. No more ambiguity for people like Jason to exploit. That wasn't part of the arrangement. The arrangement changed the moment I started caring about you more than the optics." The admission hung between them like something alive. "This stopped being fake for me weeks ago, Tori. If it ever was." Her breath caught. The suite felt too small suddenly, too warm. "Nathaniel, I know what we agreed to. 3 months, public appearances, clean boundaries." He stayed where he was, giving her space even as his words closed the distance. But standing in that bar, watching him try to manipulate you, threatening to destroy what we've built, his hands clenched. "I realized I don't care about the arrangement anymore. I care about you." Tori's heart hammered against her ribs. The board might not approve. The merger is finalized as of this morning. He pulled out his phone, showed her an email timestamped 9:34 a.m. "Zenith signed 2 hours ago. The merger's done. My board has nothing to hold over me anymore." "But you said," understanding crashed over her, "you lied to Jason about them knowing, but you told the truth about the merger." "I spent all morning in emergency calls making sure every signature was locked down before tonight." Nathaniel's expression softened. "So when I stand up there and tell everyone the woman I've been photographed with for 2 weeks is my girlfriend, the only opinion that matters is yours. Mine? Whether you want this to be real." He took 1 step closer. Just one. "Whether the past 2 weeks meant something to you beyond compensation and avoiding your ex." Tori's throat went tight. She thought about bookstore Saturdays and balcony conversations, the way he remembered she ordered salmon, how he'd looked at her in that navy dress like she was something precious, the feeling of mattering that had nothing to do with arrangements or performances. "I'm terrified," the confession spilled out, "of this, of us, of caring about someone who exists in a completely different world." "Same world." Nathaniel's voice went quiet. "Just different tax brackets." Despite everything, she almost laughed. What if it doesn't work? Her hands twisted together. What if we try this for real and it falls apart? Then it falls apart. He said it like the risk was acceptable, worth taking. But at least we'll know. At least we tried. Tori looked at him, really looked, saw the CEO who'd built an empire, and also the man who read philosophy in dusty bookstores, who took the couch without question, who'd spent all morning protecting a merger so she wouldn't have to worry about consequences. "Okay." The word came out barely above a whisper. "Okay, let's try real." Her voice steadied. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not staying quiet in meetings anymore. I'm not making myself smaller to fit beside you. If we do this, I'm going to take up space." Nathaniel's expression shifted into something that looked like pride. I wouldn't want you any other way. The reception started at 7. Tori wore the green dress Nathaniel had sent, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked like herself. Not a performance, not borrowed elegance, just her. The ballroom glittered with industry leaders and business press. Tori recognized faces from magazine covers, names that shaped technology's future. Nathaniel's hand stayed at her back as they navigated conversations, but the touch felt different now, not performative, chosen. Catherine from last night's dinner approached with calculating eyes. Nathaniel, Miss Hayes, lovely to see you both again. Catherine, Nathaniel's tone was polite but cool. I heard the Zenith merger finalized this morning. Congratulations. Her smile sharpened. I'm sure the board is pleased you managed to stay focused despite personal distractions. Actually, my personal life has nothing to do with my professional performance. Nathaniel's hand tightened slightly against Tori's back. But thank you for your concern. Before Catherine could respond, someone clinked a glass. The room quieted. Tori recognized the man at the podium as the conference organizer, beginning his welcome speech. Nathaniel leaned close to her ear. After this, I'm making my statement. Last chance to run. Tori turned her head, found his face inches from hers. I'm not running. His smile was small but genuine. Good. The organizer finished. Applause rippled through the room. Then Nathaniel was moving toward the podium, confident and commanding. Tori's heart climbed into her throat. He took the microphone with easy authority. Thank you all for being here. Before we continue tonight's program, I want to address something, publicly. The room went completely silent. Phone cameras appeared, already recording. Over the past few weeks, there's been speculation about my personal life, specifically my relationship with Victoria Hayes, who many of you know works at Sterling Global. His gaze found hers across the room. I want to be clear about several things. Tori's hands went numb. First, Victoria and I are in a relationship, not for appearances, not for business strategy, because I value who she is and who I am when I'm with her. His voice carried absolute conviction. Second, anyone who has concerns about propriety or ethics can direct them to our HR department, where they'll find all appropriate documentation and third-party oversight. Third, and most importantly, Nathaniel's expression hardened slightly. If anyone attempts to use this relationship as leverage or ammunition, you'll be dealing with me directly. Miss Hayes deserves respect, privacy, and the same professional courtesy extended to anyone in this room. I expect nothing less from this community. He handed back the microphone and walked directly toward Tori. The crowd parted. Conversations erupted in his wake, but his attention stayed fixed on her. How was that? He asked quietly when he reached her side. Terrifying and perfect. Her voice shook. Your board is going to have opinions. Let them. He offered his hand. Dance with me? Here? Now? Why not? Something playful entered his expression. You asked me once before. I'm returning the favor. Music had started, some jazz quartet in the corner. Couples were already moving to the floor. Tori placed her hand in his, let him lead her into the crowd. They found space near the center. Nathaniel's hand settled at her waist, drawing her close, closer than was strictly professional, close enough that she felt his heartbeat against her palm. Everyone's watching, she murmured. Good. His thumb traced circles against her hip. They moved together, finding rhythm like they'd done this 1,000 times. Tori's fear dissolved into something else, something that felt like belonging. Rebecca's here, Nathaniel said against her hair, near the bar. She's been watching since my speech. Tori found her in the crowd, Rebecca in silver sequins, alone, staring at them with an expression caught between shock and something else. Envy, maybe. Where's Jason? Escorted from the premises an hour ago. Nathaniel's voice held satisfaction. Hotel security found him trying to access restricted conference areas. He's banned from the venue. That simple? That final. He pulled back to meet her eyes. It's over, Tori. Whatever power he had over you, it's gone. The song shifted to something slower. Nathaniel didn't adjust their position, just kept holding her like she was something precious. Around them, conversations continued. Business deals formed. Networks expanded. But in their small space on the dance floor, only the two of them existed. I'm still scared, Tori admitted quietly, of this being real. Me too. His honesty surprised her. But I'm more scared of never knowing what we could be. Someone bumped into them. Tori stumbled. Nathaniel caught her easily, steadied her against his chest. Their faces were inches apart now. Hi, Her eyes dropped to her mouth. "Not here," she whispered, though everything in her wanted to close that distance. "Not with everyone watching." "Then later," he said it like a promise, "when it's just us." The song ended. Applause scattered through the ballroom. They separated by inches, still holding hands. Catherine appeared at Nathaniel's elbow. That was quite a speech. It was the truth. Nathaniel didn't look away from Tori. Brave. Catherine's expression had shifted from calculating to something almost respectful. Foolish, maybe, but brave. She turned to Tori. "I misjudged you last night. My apologies." Before Tori could respond, Catherine melted back into the crowd. The rest of the evening blurred. Conversations and introductions, and people treating Tori differently now that Nathaniel had claimed her publicly. Not as an accessory, as someone who mattered. They left around midnight, exhaustion pulling at both of them. The suite felt different when they returned, the air charged with possibility and unspoken things. Nathaniel loosened his tie, moved to the balcony. Tori followed, still in her green dress, heels abandoned at the door. The harbor stretched below them, dark water and distant lights, cool air that made her skin prickle. "Thank you," she said into the quiet, "for what you said tonight, for all of it." "I meant every word." He turned to face her. "This is real for me, Tori, completely real. For me too." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I don't know when it shifted, maybe at the bookstore, maybe before, but this stopped being an arrangement and became something I can't imagine losing. Nathaniel closed the distance between them, cupped her face with both hands. "Then don't lose it. Don't run. Stay. I'm not going anywhere." He kissed her then, soft at first, tentative, like they had all the time in the world to learn each other. Then deeper when she responded, her hands finding his chest, feeling his heartbeat race to match hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathaniel rested his forehead against hers. 3 months seems like a terrible timeline now. His voice was rough. "Not nearly enough." "So we renegotiate." Tori smiled against his mouth. "I'm good at pitches, remember?" His laugh was warm and real. "Best decision I ever made, saying yes when you asked me to dance. Best mistake I ever made, asking in the first place." They stayed on the balcony until the harbor lights began to dim with approaching dawn, talking, kissing, planning a future that looked nothing like either of them had imagined, but everything they both wanted. The arrangement was over. Something real had taken its place. 3 months later, Tori stood in front of her bathroom mirror trying to get her hair to cooperate. The auburn strands refused to hold the style she'd attempted, falling loose around her shoulders in waves that looked more accidental than intentional. Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Nathaniel, ready in 10?" She smiled at the screen, typed back. "Almost. Your fault for making reservations at the fancy place." "Nathaniel, my rooftop isn't fancy. It's private. There's a difference." Tori's smile widened. 3 months since the conference. 3 months of learning how to be real instead of performing. It hadn't been seamless. The office still whispered sometimes, though HI's external review had found nothing inappropriate about their relationship timeline. Catherine had actually invested in Sterling Global's new venture. Jason had taken a position in another city, and Rebecca had apparently left him 2 weeks after the conference. But mostly it had been Saturday bookstores and weeknight dinners and falling asleep during movies on Nathaniel's too expensive couch. Normal things that felt extraordinary because they were theirs. The promotion had come last month. Senior marketing director, vetted by a committee that included zero input from Nathaniel to avoid any appearance of favoritism. Tori had earned it on merit, on campaigns that transformed how Sterling Global approached client relationships. It felt good, real. She gave up on her hair, grabbed her jacket, and headed downstairs, where Nathaniel's car waited. He stood beside it in dark jeans and a sweater that made his gray eyes look silver in the streetlight. Still unfairly handsome. Still looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. "You're staring," she said, reaching him. "You're beautiful." He pulled her close, kissed her temple. "Can't help it." Flatterer. Honest observer. His hand found hers naturally. Ready? The drive took 20 minutes, winding up into hills where the city spread below like scattered diamonds. Nathaniel's building rose against the skyline, glass and steel that reflected moonlight. But instead of heading to his penthouse, he guided her to a private elevator that opened onto the rooftop garden. Tori's breath caught. The space had been transformed. String lights crisscrossed overhead, casting warm gold across carefully tended plants and comfortable furniture. A table was set for two near the edge, candles flickering despite the slight breeze. And in the corner, barely visible, someone had set up speakers playing music she recognized. The song from the charity gala, the first time they danced. Nathaniel. Her voice came out softer than intended. What is this? Technically, it's our 3-month anniversary of being real instead of fake. He moved to the table, pulled out her chair. Though I've lost track of which timeline we're celebrating. She sat, still taking in the details. Fresh flowers, wine she actually liked instead of expensive bottles chosen for labels, food that smelled incredible and homemade, not catered. You cooked? She asked, incredulously. I had help, he admitted, sitting across from her. Turns out my CTO is better in the kitchen than he ever was with drums. Who knew? Tori laughed, the sound carrying across the rooftop. Below them, the city hummed with life. Up here, they existed in their own world. Dinner was perfect. Simple pasta that tasted like someone's grandmother had made it, salad with vegetables from the rooftop garden, bread still warm from the oven. They talked about work and upcoming projects and the book Tori had found last Saturday that Nathaniel absolutely needed to read. When plates were cleared and wine glasses refilled, Nathaniel stood and offered his hand. Dance with me? Tori's heart did something complicated. That's my line. I'm stealing it. His smile was warm, seemed appropriate given the occasion. She took his hand, let him pull her close as the music swelled. They moved together with the ease of 3 months' practice, bodies learning each other's rhythms. His hand at her waist felt like home now, her palm against her shoulder, natural as breathing. Can I ask you something? Nathaniel spoke against her hair. Always. Do you remember what you said when you first asked me to dance? Could you dance with me? My ex is watching? Tori quoted back, feeling heat climb her neck. Not my finest moment. Best moment, he corrected, pulling back to meet her eyes. Changed everything. For both of us. They turned slowly, the city lights blurring into watercolor washes. The music shifted to something new, but
Perfect. Tori rested her head against his chest, felt his heartbeat steady and sure. I got offered a position, she said quietly. Competing firm. They headhunted me last week. Nathaniel's hand tightened fractionally against her back. And I turned them down. She lifted her head. Not because of you, because I'm building something at Sterling Global that matters. The Pembroke campaign is expanding into 6 new markets. The team respects my work. I'm not running from success because people whisper about how I got there. Pride flickered across his expression. Good. Though, for the record, I would have supported whatever choice you made. I know. She did. That's why I could say no without second-guessing. The song ended. Another began. They kept dancing. Jason got engaged, Nathaniel said after a moment, to someone from his new office. My assistant saw the announcement. Tori waited for the sting, the residual hurt. Found nothing but mild curiosity. Good for him. You mean that? I do. She met his eyes. He did me a favor, actually. If he hadn't been such an ass at that gala, I never would have asked you to dance. Never would have discovered what real feels like. Real's better than I expected. Nathaniel's voice dropped lower. Messier. More complicated. Infinitely more valuable. Philosophical tonight, aren't we? I'm building up to something. He slowed their movement until they were barely swaying. Fair warning. Warning received. Nathaniel stepped back, just enough to pull something from his pocket. A small box, velvet, the kind that made Tori's breathing stop entirely. Before you panic, he held up his free hand, this isn't what you think. Not yet. Not until you're ready.
He opened the box. Inside sat a key. Simple, silver, with a small tag attached. "It's to my place," Nathaniel said. "Not an expectation, not pressure, just an option. If you want your own space in the mornings, coffee made how you like it, bookshelves with room for your collections." His thumb brushed over the key. "A place that's ours instead of mine." Tori's throat went tight. "You're asking me to move in?" "I'm offering you a key," he corrected gently. "What you do with it is your choice. Keep your apartment, use this place on weekends, or don't use it at all. I just wanted you to know the option exists whenever you're ready." She looked at the key, at him, at the rooftop garden he'd transformed into something magical, at the city below that felt less intimidating now, less like a world she didn't belong in. "Ask me again in 3 months," she said finally, "when we hit 6 months of real, when I've survived meeting your family and you've survived mine. Deal." He closed the box, but handed it to her anyway. "Keep it, for when you're ready." Tori tucked it in her jacket pocket, felt its slight weight against her hip. Potential, future, choice. They danced through 3 more songs, then collapsed onto the outdoor sofa with fresh wine and the easy silence that came from complete comfort. Tori's head rested on Nathaniel's shoulder, his arm wrapped around her, thumb tracing idle patterns on her arm. "Tell me something real," she said, echoing their first real conversation. "I knew I was in trouble the night at the bookstore." Nathaniel's voice rumbled in his chest. "Watching you argue about Dostoevsky like it mattered more than anything, I realized I wanted to have those arguments with you forever. Forever's a long time. Good thing I'm patient." Tori tilted her head back to look at him, found him already watching her, with an expression that made her chest ache in the best way. "Your turn," he prompted. "Tell me something real." "I'm terrified of how happy I am," the confession spilled out, "of how much I've built my life around you being in it. What if it falls apart? What if I wake up and this was all some elaborate dream?" "Then we rebuild," Nathaniel said simply. "That's what people who love each other do." The word hung between them. Love. They danced around it for weeks, implied it in actions and choices, but neither had said it directly. "Is that what this is?" Tori's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Love? For me?" Nathaniel's hand came up to cup her face. "Absolutely. Has been since approximately the second Saturday at Morrison & Sons when you made me carry 7 books because you couldn't choose. Possibly before." Tori's laugh was watery. "That's ridiculous. That's honest." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "I love you, Tori Hayes, the woman who asked a stranger to dance because she needed a shield, who turned that performance into something real, who takes up space and refuses to apologize for it." Tears pricked her eyes, happy ones, overwhelming ones. "I love you too." The words felt enormous, true. "Even though you have terrible taste in coffee and read philosophy for fun and somehow convinced me to wear heels more than once a year." His smile was brilliant. "Yeah? Yeah." He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathless, the city lights had started to dim with approaching dawn. "We should probably head inside," Tori said, not moving. "Probably." Nathaniel didn't move either. They stayed on the rooftop until sunrise painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, talked about everything and nothing, made plans for next weekend and next month, and carefully avoided discussing next year because that still felt too big, too permanent. But the key in Tori's pocket and the love in Nathaniel's eyes suggested permanence was coming, whether they planned for it or not. Eventually, they made it downstairs. Nathaniel made coffee that was still terrible, but endearing in its consistency. Tori claimed his too expensive couch for reading while he worked on his laptop at the kitchen island. Domestic and easy, and exactly what she'd never known she wanted. Her phone buzzed around noon. Amy, finally. "Amy, lunch next week? Need to hear everything about the mysterious rooftop date I saw on your Instagram." Tori smiled, typed back, "It's a long story." Amy, "Good. I have time. Also bringing champagne." Something tells me there's celebrating to do. There was. Not an engagement or dramatic gesture, just the quiet celebration of choosing someone every day and having them choose you back, of building something real from a foundation of pretense, of asking a stranger to dance and finding forever in his answer. Tori looked up from her phone to find Nathaniel watching her, gray eyes warm. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," but his smile said everything. "Just thinking about how lucky I am that you needed a fake boyfriend. And I'm thinking about how lucky I am that you said yes. Best decision I ever made. Second best," corrected, standing and moving toward him. First best was realizing it didn't have to stay fake. She kissed him, coffee-flavored and perfect, in the kitchen of a penthouse that was starting to feel like it could be home. Outside, the city continued its relentless pace. Inside, they'd found something slower, steadier, real. And it all started with a desperate question and an unexpected yes on a charity gala dance floor 3 months and a lifetime ago.